Hello and welcome to this week 17. Oh my God, of the Power and Possibility section of the Bridging World series. 17, amazing. So, faith in action, agency, justice, and leadership today on the 13th of November, 2025. What does it all mean? What is faith? What is justice, agency? What is this thing that people keep talking about, agency? It's popped up onto the psychology. Well, it's been around in psychology for goodness, many, many years, but it's now just becoming quite prevalent in the mainstream. So today I thought, let's just touch on that and let's explain a few things and then look at justice and leadership and what it means when you're an author and you're writing about your own story and you're receiving, maybe some attention that you possibly wouldn't like. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to get rid of these floating meeting controls. There we go. I love the fact that I found out how to do that. Anyway, so again, what I want to do is just give you a quick synopsis of what we're going to be talking about, what it means to embody courage in action, not just conversation. Because there's a lot of people, let's be honest, that love to talk and they're going to do this and they're going to go be this and da 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 da. And then where's the action that follows it? Where's the integrity in that word? In all of those, big things that they talk about and how faith becomes a framework for justice, not judgment. And I think this is a really big thing because, there's a lot of people that get these mixed up. Justice, I've got a definition, of course I have. And I don't think that judgment is a bad thing. I think judgment is something that we all need and we all do. Anyone who says they don't judge, well, they're either lying to themselves or on a prescription. Because we all judge. We judge whether the road is too busy to cross. We judge if somebody, oh, I like that outfit. I don't like that outfit. Oh, I love that outfit, but not on me. I don't like that behavior. That's not for me. I'm not going to associate with that person. And it's not that we do it from a bad place. And if we do, then that's about us. But judgment is necessary. And justice is something very slightly different. Very slightly, oxymoron there. And why leadership rooted in spirituality looks different and is more sustainable. But is it? Is it really? Because we've all got the spiritual sisters and the sound bowl sisters, that, talk about leadership and, but really, where are we looking? Do we actually really understand leadership in the first place, as well as, what is religious leadership and spiritual leadership? I'm not really going to go into too much of those, just putting those out here at the moment. But, just because somebody is spiritual or religious, does it really mean that they're a leader? Is it somebody that you do want to follow, or are they faking it as they make it, something that a lot of people in leadership roles actually do. And looking at the balance between humility, agency, and authority, are they mutually exclusive? Can you have one without the other? Do they all need to be together? Well, I would say, humility is always a good thing to have. Agency is most definitely a good thing to have, and authority is a great thing to have over your own life. And it just depends on how you're going to use it. It's like a knife, you can use a knife to bone a chicken and fillet some fish, or you can use it to stab someone. How are you using the tool? And is that going to be understood by other people? How spiritual conviction can be a catalyst for real world transformation, but also for creating codependency. And also, manipulation. We're seeing a lot of spiritual narcissists appear. People that think that they're great. I mean, I was called a narcissist last week, and it came out of a blue from someone who doesn't even know me. Um, She's just going by Chinese whispers from someone who was offended by something I said. You know, this is, from people, one person who's got faith, is it really spiritual conviction? Is it about being a good person, which is what faith and religion, religions tend to tell you to be a good person, and faith is, you're going to have faith in yourself and faith that people are acting from a good place. But do they all? And faith teaches us about equity and courage. The courage to, respond rather than react. Taking that moment to, see what our reaction is. Okay, why am I feeling this? What's happened? What's actually true in this? so that I can respond accordingly. Most people do not understand the difference between the two. So we're going to dive in. And I just wanted to, as always, give a little bit of definition here because, it's always good to get some context. I was at an event last night. Uh, it was a good event. I enjoyed it. It was an interesting topic, but the speaker didn't actually give context and definition, which left a few of us like, well, what are we actually talking about here? Like, what lens are you looking at this through? So the way I understand it, and if you do a really quick search online, you might see that Thomas S. Bateman from Psychology Today, he's written it's one of the most prevalent articles that you'll see online. It comes up and it talks about agency being the highest level of personal competence. It is about saying, this is what I want to achieve and this is what I need to do, and actually going and doing it, learning it, whether you learn it academically or whether you learn it in, the University of Life. It is that highest level of personal competence, which is why I've put it at the very top with capitalized letters. It's also a mindset. There are some people, I mentioned it last week, we can always look at things as happening to us or happening for us, or happening through us or as us. There are the four different versions of it. Now, those of you who seem to think that everything happens to you, you're in a victim state. Those of us that say, well, this is happening for us, we're in an egoic state. Those of us that look at it, this is happening through us, we're in that state of alchemy. Like, what did I learn? What did I go through? What did I learn? How can I pass it on to help raise other people up and help them have courage and inspiration? So again, it's about learning those different mindsets, because once you set your mind to something, that is kind of the path that you'll go on. So if that is the victim path, if that is the absconding responsibility or not respecting space or boundaries, or other people's learnings, then it's going to really impact your own agency. Like it says, it's a psychological concept and comprises of four activities: forethought, implementation, self-management, and learning and adapting. And again, it all ties into that, is it happening to me, for me, through me, or as me? And it's about an individual learning to accept their responsibility, that they can make a change in their life, that they don't have to be dependent on something or someone, that they don't have to keep themselves stuck in a situation. And as those of you who've been following me this year, you'll have known it's been a pretty tough year. The beginning of the year, it was like, get yourself out of bed and stay out of bed, get out of bed. And it was February, was get out of bed and attend a Zoom, show up for your weekly moment. And over the year I achieved these different goals because I understood agency, and I understood that a lot of what I do is about justice, and it's about being a leader for all the people that have ever believed in me and look up to me. Now, even though I own that, some people might think that makes me a narcissist, but those people who know me really, and I know myself, I am not one. So again, it's about that capacity to understand who we are, and be able to exert that control over what we're moving forward towards. Hopefully it's a purpose of a higher self. Justice. This is something that, as an author of some of the books the type of books that I write and the study that I've been doing towards my PhD, we're looking at the principle of fairness, taking on the government, taking on police forces. I've had to really, truly understand what justice means. It is that principle of fairness and impartiality. This is the dictionary definition, and ensuring people are treated equitably and receive what they are due. Now, obviously, that's going to be very different. Some people go, well, they deserve this, and somebody else will, actually, they don't deserve that. And whether someone is coming from a victim mentality or whether they're coming from a spiteful or a jealous mentality, you tend to find those people don't have much agency in their life. They don't have much awareness of themselves and their own actions. And we're looking at the fair treatment of individuals and the equitable distribution of benefits and burdens within a society or institution. Now, we could go down the philosophical routes and look at, what is totalitarianism, what is, mine's just totally gone blank. Are we look at what kind of governing systems are we looking at? Are we looking at, whether somebody, who's taken a life deserves to die? Are we looking at somebody who's taken a life, understanding why they did that? Or if somebody has committed sexual violence against someone else, or medical negligence, or whether it's been systemic abuse, what are we understanding? How did it happen? And did the individual that was the straw that broke the camel's back, is that person to blame, or is everybody to blame? And do we really want to play the blame game? Do we really want to get into that? Because, nothing happens in isolation. Um, and, when we look at defining what fairness is, and some people go, but life's not fair. That's not fair. And it's like, yeah, but life's not fair. If we want everything to be fair for our children, are we suffocating them and preparing them, setting them up for failure? Because as when you get to my age, nearly 50, we understand that life is not fair. Why is it that there are some of us that are born into affluence and safety, and others are born into a war zone? And why is it that some are subjected to genocide and others are allowed to get away with blue murder, as we say? I've got a hair on my arm and it's doing my head in. There we go. There we go. It'll teach me to do my hair. But again, what are we looking to, I put in here brackets, seek to address existing inequalities, which is equitability or equitable. And I just wanted, because I know that sometimes when I mention that word, some people, what do you really mean? So just wanted to put that in there as well. And then I just wanted to touch on leadership, because obviously we've got the three words at the top there: agency, justice, and leadership. And one of the things when I've been studying leadership over the years, one of the things I read in the 21st Century Leadership by Roth was that those who study leadership don't actually lead, and those who lead don't always know the definition of leadership. They just lead naturally. And it's very interesting when we look at some people who call themselves a leader, but they're actually a manager. And those people who think they're only a manager, but they're, sorry, not only a manager, there is no such thing as only a manager, but they think that they're a manager, but in fact, actually, they're a leader. And what does it actually take to be a leader? And what is good or bad leadership? I mean, at the moment, we've got this big debate that, Trump is a bad leader. Some people think that Hitler was a bad leader, but Hitler was actually a very good leader. It wasn't a very good philosophy that he had. It was quite, well, to most of us around the world, it was pretty evil. But he was still a good leader. He still managed to rally, what we call rally the troops, and get people to believe in this ideology, like we're seeing it in many other areas of society at the moment. But again, what is what is good or bad leadership? Is a parent who makes excuses all the time and doesn't really fulfill their potential? Are they a good leader within their own family? And if somebody doesn't have a family, but they love to make excuses and they're dependent maybe on the benefit system, maybe they're dependent on, their parents still when they're an adult, but are they really an adult if they're always depending on other people? Where does self-leadership come from? And are we looking at what the attributes? I remember my parents saying, remembering that this series is based on my first book, Friday Bridge. I remember my mother saying, don't mix with those foreigners, they'll lead you astray and fill your head with funny ideas. They really did fill my head with funny ideas and lead me astray to travel the world and open my mind. And this is something that really triggers a lot of people, because I don't look at the world through a monocultural lens. I don't look at it from a few cultures. When you've lived, worked, and explored 47 countries around the world, from different kinship systems and language-based systems, different religious systems, you're sat on your ass a lot, because you realize everything that you've ever been taught about world history or about different cultures is actually not that accurate. You kind of have to relearn your own history. You have to relearn everything that you think you know about the world, and that's really humbling. But then you're going to meet somebody who thinks that they know everything about the world, and they try and have a conversation with you, or you try and have a conversation with them, and you realize we're not at the same starting point, and me having a conversation with you about this is just not worth it, because you cannot There's a phrase, I think it was Mark Twain, never argue with an idiot, they'll beat you with experience. Um, you know, there are certain things, why would I waste my time with somebody who's so closed-minded or so spiteful or so limited in their own agency? I could be the one there that, wants to help everybody get that agency and want to, take responsibility and get justice for themselves in their own life. But really, what is that closing gap? Am I up here and they're down here, or are they up here and I'm trying to get there? Look at the differences and the levels that you're playing at, because it wouldn't really be fair to play Manchester United or Real Madrid, against a Sunday league team of toddlers when you've got grown-ass men that have, been on the pitch playing for Premiership clubs around the world. Again, know where your level of justice sits and your level of leadership sits, so that you can all truly own your own agency at your level that you're playing at. And your agency will increase, your awareness of it. Goodness, many of us have known about agency and, honoring ourselves and setting boundaries and setting standards. We're always evolving, because we're realizing that, what we know today is nowhere near what we might learn tomorrow. Anything can happen within an hour, within a minute, something that you learn, something you hear, something you experience. And it's always about, honing our own agency and our leadership and really being just to everybody. Because it might be in a small social gathering, it might be in your local community, it might be in your business, or if you're a political leader, looking at how your self-leadership ripples out to other people. And it also means that we're not stripping other people of their agency. When we take away somebody else's right for a voice, or we take away somebody else's right to be who they are, that could land very differently. It could be that, for example, you're asking for a bit of headspace, you're asking for a bit of quiet, and somebody might take offense to that. And, or it might be that you say, this is a really great idea, but just not right now. For those of us who are in business, we were having a conversation at the business accelerator that I'm part of, and we were looking, funding for scaling businesses and starting up and, evolving businesses. And some it came up, but it's not a no, it's just not right now. Or it's like, I just need this headspace right now, but not forever. And then it's always about honoring yourself and making sure that whatever comes next, you're always reevaluating those boundaries and those standards that you keep. And if you need to honor your own agency and somebody gets upset about it, well, then that's on them. That's for them to do the deeper inner work. We've got a series of mugs here with a DBI that we're about to launch. One of them is called Prepared to be Offended. The other one is I come with a trigger warning, because sometimes when we honor who we are and we set our standards and we set our boundaries and we own who we are, other people will get offended by that, and they will be triggered into hating you online and in lots of different places. And that's where your agency really does come in, and the way you lead yourself through that. Having faith in yourself is absolutely imperative. Because if you truly believe that what you're doing is good, it might clash with somebody else. It might not. It might, for example, my latest book, Owning Our Ovaries, this book has caused a lot of backlash already, because it's upset women who, well, not many, it's upset, or been reportedly, it's been reported to have upset women who no longer have ovaries, or ovaries that don't work. It's also offended the trans community, because they're women, and it's like, well, you don't have ovaries, so this book is not about you. When I did the book with Tough to Talk on men's mental health, no one really had a problem about that. The women didn't rise up and say, why are women not included in that book? Well, this book is the same. It's a metaphor for women who have own ovaries to own who they are, own all of who they are, which parts of their bodies work in the way they want to or don't work. And it's about accepting that, and about going, you know what, this is who I am. This is what my body has given me. These are the cards that I've been dealt, and it's about me playing the biggest badass game of poker that I can. Well, you really don't want to play poker. Well, you probably would want to play poker with me, because I'd be shit at it. I'd get too excited if I'd got a winning hand. But went, oh, yeah, just I'd be really bad at poker. I mean, I lose at rummy, and with my sons, the master became the student. My boys are so good at card games. Obviously, I'm a very good teacher, but they took it to a whole new level. But again, it's about owning those different parts of yourself and having faith in yourself. Because what we tend to see is that some people who are so reliant on their faith in God or a higher purpose, that they lack that self-belief, they lack that faith in themselves and their ability and their intelligence and their way of being. And it kind of, well, if God wanted me to have it, then I would have it. Well, there's something that comes to mind. There was a man drowning in the ocean, and was praying to God, please send someone to, please save me, please save me. And the story goes that someone came walking on and they wanted to help. He goes, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. And then someone else came along, same thing happened. He goes, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. And then the third one comes along and he goes, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. And then he gets up to heaven and says, why didn't you save me? Because I sent you 3 people. And again, that's the thing. It's like, if you're waiting for God to fix you, or you're waiting for other people to fix you, or you're waiting for other people to give you the hand up, you are plan A, plan B, all the way through to plan Z, or Z if you're in the States. So again, it's about honoring your agency, because when you dishonor your agency and you have faith in a higher power, whether that's God, source, I call it Gus, God, universe, and source. If you're not honoring all the skills and the attributes that you've got and the intelligence you've got, and you're making yourself into a victim, then you're actually dishonoring the entity that you believe in. You're dishonoring your parents, and you're dishonoring the purpose that you were put on earth to fulfill. And this is just my opinion. My opinion is my opinion. And when I look at psychology and I look at everything that I've learned over the last 30 years and beyond, it all kind of adds up. And you look at some of the most successful people in the world and they will say the same. And we tend to find that people who don't have much success, or that have got themselves into this victim mode, are the ones that really lash out at those of us who have achieved something. And so it really is about making sure that you become the highest version of yourself, the very best version of yourself. Something that was quite confusing to me as I was growing up was that my mother would always say, you can only do your best and no one can ask you more, no one can ask more of you from that. So when I did my best, but it's like, you think you're better than us. I'm like, no, I don't. Absolutely I don't. Or we're not good enough for you. I was like, no, you are. I just want more. I just want to explore. I want to learn more. I want to see more. And and again, it just so you become your best. But when you do become the best version of yourself and you go on to achieve all of these experiences and these accolades and and these achievements, it does come back to bite you in the arse. Especially with some of the small-minded people that we tend to have in the world, and online stalkers and online haters. But again, it's like, that's when you have to tap into your agency and you tap into your leadership and you go, you know what? I send you love. I send you forgiveness, and I return to sender. You'll have heard me say it throughout this series, return to sender. It's not mine. That spite, that hate, that's not mine to deal with. When you get people comparing themselves to you, or trying to, we live in a world where tall poppy syndrome is quite rife. And as long as you're at our level, then we're okay. But if you put your head above the parapet, or we're going to try and bring you down. And so it is about you really making some bold leadership decisions, going, you know what, this is not the right environment for me. I've given you your time. I'm moving on to the next. Or cutting ties with people, or saying, you know what, we're done. We are so done. There is, you have to draw those lines, and it is about making sure that every choice that you make, I mean, some people call it decision making, but I prefer the word choice, because a decision that comes from the word decide, which is genocide, suicide, infanticide. homicide. It's about the death of something. So we need to, for me, it's like, what choices do I have? Which one am I choosing? Um, and it has a much lighter energy, much more powerful energy behind it, if you believe in energy. Some people don't, but I wouldn't like to argue with Stephen Hawkins, because I don't really know much more, but I don't know as much about the quantum realm as he does. Um, and when we do step up and go, I own who I am, I'm good with who I am, and I know that I'm a just and fair person. I know that I'm a great leader. And once you own that, it can be hard when you receive hate, or people that are just trying to sabotage you at every turn. But when you do stand up and you stand up and be counted, as the old parable says, that you start to transform people bit by bit. They realize they can't hurt you. They realize that they're not going to stop you. And the people that are watching, because people are always watching, the way you take the knocks, and the way you take the hatred online, or you take the missed opportunities, and you pivot, and you make something better of it. There will be people that are going, I like that. And we start to chip away and build other people up, and our leadership and the fact that we're a role model empowers other people. The fact that we refuse to be silenced, the fact that we refuse to be belittled, or cut down in the poppy fields, that really resonates, and that sends out a vibrational signature. And we tend to attract more people who want to have the courage and the conviction that we have, and then we just drive forward. And again, it comes back to spiritual practices and moral convictions. Is one more than another? A spiritual practice is diving into meditation. They say that your request to God is in prayer, and meditation is receiving that answer. You're listening to your soul, you're listening to what is it you truly desire, and then you step into your agency from that. And then once you step into your agency and it feels good, and that there's a lot of justice in there, because the moral conviction will not allow you to do anything bad. And if the thought that of harming somebody is not on your agenda, or excluding people, then we can look at what actually is the style of justice that we're going after. What is it that we're trying to achieve with our purpose, or what is it that we're achieving with our purpose? And what is that, when we're on that road to fulfilling our purpose, at this level, because there's always more levels to achieve, where is our moral compass, our moral conviction coming in? Are we lashing out at other people? Are we writing in spite of other people? Are we writing to spite other people? Are we spreading positive messages for the sake of our ego? Are we spreading positive messages to help other people to have a voice, to inspire hope, courage, and belief in others, and for them to know that they're not the only one? This week, I've been catching up on, Britain, from the years that I was out of the country, because people keep making references that I'm like, I have no idea. And they're like, what do you mean you have no idea? And I'm like, well, I was in Brazil, or I was in Colombia, or I was sailing across the Atlantic, no idea. So I've been looking at the Alan Bates story, where he took on the post office here in Britain. And it was such a humbling story, and crying happy tears. I was like, and crying because I couldn't believe what was happening to these people. And there was one scene that really resonated with me, where this woman is doing her absolute best to reconcile all of her accounts, and everything is laid out, and she's crying, and she's panicking, and she's about to lose her house. And the government and the crown did that. The post office did that to her. And they lied, and they knew that it was wrong. But they still kept doing it. And like, where is the justice been given? Because these people have only received £20,000 in compensation, but some of them lost their homes, some of them lost their took their own life, so families lost their husbands or their wives, and some people were made to pay back 40, 50, 60,000 pounds. Some people were spent years in months in prison for something that the post office knew was wrong, but they lied to them and said, "Oh, you're the only one." So I was very proud to have the name Bates after watching that. I mean, I was proud of it anyway because of my grandpa. But again, it's, what is the moral conviction when we get to the top, once we're in that leadership role? Where is the moral conviction based on justice for everybody? We can own our own agency, but if it's done without moral conviction and moral goodness, is it really agency? Is it really leadership? Because it's certainly not just when that kind of thing happens. Fujitsu are making billions in profit. The post office, are their profits being declared? Why is it that, these people are still struggling to rebuild their lives after all these years? That's not just. That's not government leadership. That is not leadership by the monarchy here in Britain. That's not leadership by the post office. And it certainly isn't, I wouldn't say it's a moral coded level of agency either. But there we go. We all have different moral codes. I mean, look at Jack Sparrow's compass. It tells you what you really want, but does it really? And one of the things about us having faith that I really got from the documentary, and I've learned it many times, but just watching it, in this docu-series about Alan Bates versus Mr. Bates versus the post office, was that Mr. Bates had such faith that everything was going to work out, and he was so calm about it. He didn't get angry, and there was, the fact that these people thought that they'd made mistakes in their accounting, and there was just coming together, and they had this belief in him. So I'm just getting emotional thinking, what a man, what an absolute superstar of a man. And when they won at the end, I did cry, because I was like, wow. And it reminded me of all the times when I've been harsh on myself, or I haven't got the results that I wanted, either for myself or for my authors. And then I'm like, well, I can't take responsibility for my authors. I cannot take responsibility for anybody else but me. I can provide them with all the tools, I can provide them with all the knowledge, and we move forward. And if we make mistakes, we can fail forward, because it's not really a mistake if we're learning from it. It's a learning lesson. And it's the woman at the head of the post office, she was a vicar, but did she have good morals? The fact that she allowed what happened, is her just simply asking for forgiveness in prayer enough when they're still keeping all the money from all the victims of the post office scandal? Does it really wipe out the damage that she's done to and allowed to be done to so many other people? No, because those people are still living with the damage done to their life. So they haven't had justice. They won and they set a precedent so that anybody coming after there can actually apply for justice, but those people haven't got justice. And I would argue that if you are in a position of faith leadership, then you really better get your act together and make sure that your moral compass is intact. And like I said at the beginning, it really, when we say we are something, how much integrity is in that? If we're saying that we're a leader, are we really leading from goodness and justice for all, and sound agency? Are we looking for this title of leadership, thought leader or community leader or political leader? Are we just having those for the sake of a job title? Like, how many people write a book just to have the title of author? They publish it, and get international bestseller because they put it as a 99 special in a 24-hour timeline in a very obscure category. They get international bestseller. They probably only sold 3 copies. That doesn't really make it a bestseller. Well, it does because it's a bestseller in that category. But is it really a bestseller? Is the integrity, is the agency there? That's one of the reasons why so many people that go, oh, I really want a bestseller. Do you really? Because to get a proper bestseller, like a real authentic bestseller, you've got to shift lots and lots of books. I mean, I say I'm still surprised. The amount of work I do, I'm not surprised, but my first book is still selling after 10 years. It's consistently selling. And I'm so, so grateful to absolutely everybody who buys my books and reads them and reviews them and, and sends me messages. Some of the messages I receive are very humbling. And it keeps me going. And it's like, okay, yeah, I am making a difference. I'm going to keep doing that. And, I've had so many haters. I had one last week. I don't know who she is. I have no interest in finding out who she is. The level of vitriol online was just disgusting. But that's where she is. That's her level of expressing herself, attacking people she doesn't know and listening to one-sided Chinese whispers, as they used to say. And they have nothing better to do with their lives than attack other people that are more successful than them. But like I said, we just send them love and forgiveness, and we hope that they find the peace that they're looking for. And it's about, like I said, with this, Mr. Bates was so humble. He was like, it's not about me. And then, you saw the Lady Joe who got her conviction squashed. She was like, look what you did, Alan. This one's for you. And it was just like, oh my God, the tears just kept coming. There was so much humility in him. But is it in spiritual places? Because faith and religion are not mutually exclusively. And just because you have spirituality doesn't really mean you have faith. Because, and it was something my youngest son said to me. He said, and I was like, no, I do believe it. Because if you believe it, then you wouldn't have to keep repeating it. And those of us who do manifestation and work within the spirit realm, if we keep writing it over and over again, or we just go, you know what, that's what I'm going to do, and we just get on and do it. Do we have to keep writing it down every single day? That we're receiving it, we're receiving it, we're receiving it. Because if we have to keep writing it every single day, do we actually trust and have faith that it's going to happen? Don't know. I get the law of attraction. I get writing things down. I get manifesting things. Do any of us actually really know? And this is one of the reasons why I say that I have faith, but I'm not religious, because who am I to say that one religion is more correct than another one? Who am I to say that this path is the right path? It's a belief, it's a faith, but I choose not to have a religion. I've chosen to study theology in the Abrahamic faiths and the Book of Tao and the Pali Canon, and and look at all of those, and go, you know what? There's so many similarities in all of these. They were revealed at different times. And so I accept that people have that belief because they've come from that place, they've come from that nation, they've come from that family. Are they questioning it? Or are they just believing that that's true because that's what they've been told? Or are they believing it because they've got no choice to not believe it? So, for example, I met somebody recently who walked away from their family. And so the thing is, that person now has to be so true, so right about their belief, because if they're not right, they've walked away from their family for nothing. They've, broken those family ties for the sake that they were right, and they have to now be right. There is no going back. And we're seeing it with other ideologies around at the moment, because of the amount of damage that's been done, either to themselves or to family members. Those people cannot now be wrong. They have to live and die by that sword that they've stood on that hill and died on that hill, as they say. So again, it's about, what is the humility? Do we have the humility to to make amends, to admit that we're wrong. I heard it this morning by a really fabulous speaker at an event that I attended. Is it a one or two-way door? Because if you walk through the door and you can't go back, that's not really helpful. But if you walk through a door but you can return the other way, that is where we actually really step into humility, and honoring our agency, whether it's in a spiritual place or whether it's in an organization or whether it's within our family. Are our children allowed to make mistakes? Are we allowed to make mistakes or fail forward, as I've said? And like when we're writing books and sharing our stories, like I said, going after our goal and living our highest purpose, there are going to be people that do um, their best to sabotage, whether it's they write really bad reviews, or they're constantly bombarding, or they for example, we are launching the Owning Our Ovaries book, and the venue cancelled right at the day that we were about to put tickets on sale. So we've had to pivot. We've had to make sure that the launch still goes ahead, and that my team and I were all pulling together, and we're making sure that the launch goes ahead on the date of the International Day of Prevention of Violence Against Women. And again, it's like, why are we doing that? Because we have to keep going forward. Some people will do whatever they can to sabotage you. We see it in movies, where, there's a gangster, or, the police are after someone and someone's tires get slashed, or, like investigation material goes missing. They're sabotaging the investigation, and, it all gets a bit gripping, and we're like, oh, who's going to win? And really, the people that do the sabotaging and the hating, do they actually really win on a deep soul level, on an agency level? Because they're not really winning. They're just poisoning themselves even more. They're living with this vitriol within inside them. And it's really quite sad that they don't have the tools in life to be impartial, or be able to think bigger, and more, don't think with more kindness. We say, we see it all the time, be kind, you never know what somebody's going through. And you don't, none of us know, it's but it's something that people put these memes out there, but do they actually really live by them? One of the great books that I've read, and I love this book and I go back to it time and time again, is Justice, What's the Right Thing to Do by Michael Sandel. I love this book. I don't know, like, it's one of my go-to books. It's, if I'm in a situation, it's okay, what would Michael say? What does Michael write? And I just thought of Michael Knight then with the kick car. Woo, woo. And those of you who are in the 80s, you'd know what I mean. But again, it's one of those books that it just really sums up justice. So if you haven't read the book, make sure you get yourself a copy and really understand justice, because it looks at the morality of justice, and what is the right thing to do. Is it the greatest number, of the greatest happiest for the great happiness for the greatest number? Is this ethically right? Is this ethically wrong? Do we kill one person to save 10? That kind of thing. And it's just like, wow. I mean, they're very simple explanations of the book, but it's a brilliant, brilliant book. So if you haven't got it, go and get it. But it also makes you look at things that maybe you would never have considered before. And when we're looking at humility and faith, we need to have both of those and our agency for true leadership, in my opinion. But my opinion is is it like part of 6.8 billion people in the world at the moment? Not that we know of. I think that was the last statistic that I read. So just wrapping up. So faith is about belief and responsibility, not religion. You can have deep faith and belief without it being rooted in religion, and your soul will always know. So follow your inner GPS. Your soul knows what's right. And if you're doing something and it's wrong, but it doesn't feel wrong, then you might want to check your moral compass. You might want to check where your ethics are and the kind of person that you are. And like I said, just because you follow a religion doesn't mean to say that you're a kind person. And when the haters arrive, know you're doing something right, because I do know that all the times that I've received hatred, and I've received a lot of it over the years for some of the stuff I write and the things I've done, you know, and but it's always turned out for the better, because I've gone, okay, you've said that. Is that mine? No, return to sender. And haters are just going to hate. They're mainly keyboard warriors. Some people take it out into the street, but that's on them. And as I always say to my boys, well, boys, young men, your ideas and your voice matter. So use them, you know, because if you're not using them, what's the point of having them? And when you live a life of agency by choosing wisely and choosing you, then your life becomes a lot better. So that's it for that. Hang on, I've got to figure out how to stop sharing that page. And no, because I can do it here. So one of the things I wanted to share with you is the fact that Owning Our Ovaries is live on the 25th of November, and it is an anthology. So I'm just distracted by the font used on my website. I'm like, huh? It's not the correct font, I don't believe, but there we go. It might be in my settings. But again, if you're looking at writing a book and you don't feel that you can handle the message by yourself once it goes public, maybe consider doing an anthology. If you want to develop your leadership, then, you know, consider an anthology where you get a group of up to 9 people. I would never have more than 10 people in an effective anthology, and a really deep and powerful anthology. I would never have more than 10. And also there's a moral issue behind that as well. Consider writing an anthology about something that you're really passionate about, and that is aligned with your purpose, because then what you're doing is you're bringing in together everybody's other people's platforms, the OPPs, and you're getting the message spread far and wide. You can also split the cost of publishing between you and others that are in your book, but it can help you develop your leadership. So if you're interested in doing that, then do send me a message. You can book a call with me, and this is, you know, for the author strategy session. So if you want to write a book by yourself or with a group of people, then do book in an author strategy session, and I'll see if I can help you and how I can help you. Maybe it's pointing you in the direction of other people. Maybe it's, you know, doing a manuscript assessment for you. Maybe it is, you know, going all the way and publishing with you. So those are the opportunities that you've got. So please do send me a DM. Oh, hang on, what's that? I'm there is me. I'm at the top. I don't know if it's just on my view. It might be on. I'll see what Tai says, if she can get rid of that picture, that static picture of me. But yeah, so if there are any ways in which I can support you, then please do let me know. And I will do my very best for you. In the meantime, have a really great weekend, and I will see you again next week for week 18. 3 more to go, and then we're on to a very different subject. All right, then, you take care. Ciao for now. Bye bye.